Hey guys, welcome to DevOpsSchool.
In this video tutorial, we are going to learn about JMeter. Apache JMeter is an open source testing tool used for analyzing and measuring the performance of different software services and products. It is a pure Java open source software used for testing web application or FTP applications. It is used to execute performance testing, load testing, and functional testing of web applications. After going through this tutorial, I assure you that the concept and understanding of the JMeter will be absolutely clear to you. But before we begin, let me inform you a few things about us. DevOpsSchool is one of the leading platforms which offers DevOps, cloud and containers technology training and certification programs for freshers and established professionals who wish to update and consolidate their skills in the dynamic IT scenario. We ensure that the training solutions are delivered by highly experienced domain experts with practical working experience in various verticals. You can join our all training programs globally through online platforms, and if you're looking for classroom workshop, then we have regular batches available in Hyderabad and Bangalore. Check out the dates and enroll with us for our upcoming batches. For more info, link and contact details are mentioned in the description below.
So now I'm going to talk about the next tool of our list, which is called JMeter. So let's get started. So today, in terms of JMeter, we are going to explore the world of performance testing. How can we do the performance testing? So now the question is, what is a JMeter? So JMeter is one of the open source product which is being used widely for the performance and load testing. And this is from the Apache, and you see that you can get their software at the apache.org. Okay, so before that, we should understand what is a performance testing, and then how the JMeter is being used for the performance testing. Also, we're going to understand about the configuring the test plan, and then recording, and then followed by some dynamic and collecting the analysis of the test reports. So now let's get started. So who should be the audience for this particular training? So basically, anyone who is well versed with the QA process, and also who wants to understand the load and performance testing for the applications, and they want to validate the software through the performance and load testing, they can use the JMeter. Yes, you should be having the prerequisites, something like you should be knowing about the JDK and very well Java environments. Things should be very well. So now, as part of this demo, I'm going to go through the one demo applications, which I'm going to give you the path while using the demo. I'm going to show you that one. So now let's understand what is a performance testing. So performance testing basically tests how an application or resources performs under the given load to see its impact. So basically, there's an application which you want to release to the market, and before releasing to the market, you want to know what about how my application would behave when I have some particular load. Load in terms of number of sessions, number of users, and with the given scenario. Let's say you are running the application in 10 servers. So in 10 servers, what is the best number of users which can, request and response time will be very much under control and under the threshold. So for that to reach to that numbers, to have a auto scaling done for the application, you do the performance testing. So that way you can plan for your production server infrastructure. So this is the way you do that. So basically, yes, performance testing is done after the functional testing. And in terms of performance testing, you have to look out for the response time, throughput, reliability, and scalability. So these are the 4 points which you look for it. So now, what is the response time? So response time, which is something like the request time plus processing time plus response time. So all together, which also sometimes include the network latency, is being called as a response time. Okay, and that based on the response time, you are going to find it out whether your application is responding well or not responding well. Now, throughput is basically a number of transaction which is request by or response by unit of time in millisecond or second. So that is basically a throughput. Here, the number of transaction, it can be in bytes sent received also, and unit of time, it can be in a millisecond and second also. Now, what is the reliability score? So reliability is basically number of errors what you get it when you do the load, and the number of requests which you by number of requests. So that's called reliability. Now, scalability, which again uh, uh, depends on the response time, throughput, and percentage of the error. So that is all about scalability. It can be vertical scalability as well, and you can scale the application horizontally as well. So now, overall performance requirement is very much important, and which basically helps you to average out the maximum response time should be this number, and then system should be able to support this number of pages per second. The system should be able to capable of supporting at least this number of users per hour. So basically these are the number of requirements in terms of performance what we have, and for that we do the performance testing. So as part of the performance testing, we do the design and build the test cases, prepare the test environment, run the test cases, and then analyze the results, optimize, and retest it. So this is something which we keep doing it, and here that is where we can use the JMeter. So JMeter will help you to do the performance testing. Let me tell you here, JMeter is not a browser. It does not execute the JavaScript. It's just create a load through the browser at the application. So think of JMeter as a tool to perform the multiple server request. Okay. So now types of performance tests. So we have a number of two ways to generate a loads. So here you can generate a load using the number of users to that particular application, or the number of requests which you can generate through the number of to that particular application. So this is the two ways to generate a load. Now, a smoke test is just to validate whether the number of users which has got into the application, and then who's creating a load on the application, whether it is fine as per the threshold or not, or maybe number of requests which is processed by the application which is as per the threshold or not. That is done through the smoke test verification. Now, there are different kind of uh, uh, performance tests. We have it: load test, stress test, spike test, endurance test. So these are the things which we have it. So ultimately, yes, performance testing is a very important part of the application testing process in which you can get to know the response time, throughput, reliability, scalability much in advance. Again, there are multiple requirements for it, and for that only we design the build the test cases, prepare the test environment, run the test, analyze the results, and optimize and retest it. So what are the features which we have in the JMeter? So JMeter has a different ways to create a load on the servers, applications, resources. You can define the variables, you can process the request and the response, you can record the test from the browser, and also you can install the plugins which can be extendable as well. So yes, generating a load and performing the types of tests, which include smoke test, load test, stress test, spike test, endurance test. So let's get into the another slides. So now, with the introduction of the performance testing, we're going to understand the JMeter. So we're going to understand how JMeter works, and then we're going to understand the installation process of the JMeter and directory structure, and then how to run the JMeter, and then basically configuring the plugins. So these are the things which we are going to do with. So how JMeter works? So as I said, JMeter is not a browser. JMeter works at the protocol level, simulating the network request, and that is you can simulate the user's one thread which is equal to one user at the application level. So that is way it can create a load. So here typically test execution, it takes place in terms of JMeter will create a request, and then again JMeter will save the response and also collect the data, and and that is the three ways in which you can do this in the loop and parallel as well. So these are the JMeter text execution. So now what is the installation requirement for the JMeter? So JMeter is one of the application which should be having more core, like 4 or more cores. RAM should be 16 GB. RAM is ideal, and again the network should be very high speed. Again, these are the hardware requirement for the production grade testing infrastructure related JMeter. So though you can have a small CPU and RAM, also you can run the JMeter for the learning and trial purpose. So that is also possible. So even I'm doing the same thing. So now in terms of software requirement for the JMeter, Java is important. Most of the time JDK is preferred, because sometimes what happens, like JVM JR is not having the all the library which can it run because of the dependency. But JDK, once you install it, get additional library. So that way it is very recommended. Now again, if you install the JDK, you should set the Java home environment variable. So that's the software requirement. Now, installing and directory structure, again, you can install in various ways in a Mac or any other operating system as well. There is no exe is available for the Windows, so basically you have to download in Linux as well as in Windows. You have to download the zip or tarball, and from the Apache website, extract the file, set the Java home, and run the JMeter, and you get started. Now, in terms of directory structure, if you look at this, once you extract the zip file, which is installer, basically it's in TAR format or GIF format, you will find such kind of directory structure: bin docs, extra lib, and licenses, and printable docs. So in the bin, basically you have some script which can be used to starting and stopping the JMeter. Docs, you have documentation. Libraries, you have a multiple jars which is making the JMeter worthy, and all the features of the JMeter which is coming from the libraries jar files itself. So now running the jar, so yes, there's a two files you can find under the bin directory: jmeter.bat, which is for the Windows, and jmeter.sh, which is for the Unix, Linux, and Mac, which you can use it for the starting the JMeter application. Now, through the non-GUI mode also, you can run the application. So you can have a jmeter-n-t test file.jms. JMS is the way where you define everything in one go and then run the application. So non-GUI mode is also possible. Now, if you want to go and get the help for JMeter, so again jmeter-h. Again, if you type jmeter-question mark, then you get a command line options which you can use it for. So now configuring the plugin. So first of the plugins which you have to configure is JMeter plugins manager. Okay. So again, JMeter plugins you can find on the jmeter-plugins.org. Hundreds of plugins you will be getting at that place. But one of the plugins which is very much required is JMeter plugins manager. So all the plugins which you're going to install, that is through the JMeter plugins manager. So that's one of the prerequisites which you have. Now, what need to be done to install the plugins? Very simple: download the jar file from the repository, plugins repository, and there's one directory which is called libext. Just copy the jar file inside that, and then restart the JMeter. And that is how you get this JMeter started. Now, many plugins which you can install, such as custom thread groups, basic graphs, again throughput, shaping, timer, and damage sampler. These are the sample of the plugins which you can also install. The installing of the plugins, the process will remain same. Just copy the jar file into the ext and then start the JMeter from again. So that's the way you can get it. So yes, these are the things to remember. JMeter is not a browser; it works at the protocol level. You can install the JDK 8 and then set the Java home. You can get started with the JMeter. You have a GUI mode, also non-GUI mode. Again, plugins manager, which helps you to manage the multiple plugins and the JMeters, which can extend the functionality of JMeter. So this is the introduction of the JMeters. Now let's create a configuring the test plan, and this is the most important while working with the JMeter. So we need to understand the terminology terminologies what we use it. So here, when you configure the test plan, it's very important to understand the hierarchies. So under the test plan, this is the kind of tree structure you can get it. Again, if you look at this under the test plan, you have user defined variables. You can see that requested some HTTP request defaults, some cookie manager, thread group, some recording controller, catalog request, book request, all these things. So you need to understand all this structure very well. So typically, this is the structure which you will have to create for your use cases. So now in terms of JMeter, when you create any test plan, that we call it a test plan here. So under the test plan, basically four components which you can find it. One is configuration element, another one is a thread group, third one is a listener, and fourth one is a test fragment. Now, I'm very much focused on configuration element, thread group, listener. So now, under the thread group, if you see, here you find the sampler and controller. Again, under the thread group, you may find the sampler and controller, and under the controller, you might find the sampler again. Again, sampler, it can be a two types, pre-post processes and assertion. Now, timer, you have it. So now we need to understand what is a test plan, what is a configuration element, what is a thread group, what is a listener, what is a sampler, what is a controller, what is a timer, what is a pre-post processor and assertions. So these are the important things which we need to learn. Now, let's get started. So what is a test plan? The root element of the test where its overall settings are specified and all the other elements are contained, that is called test plan. So as you see that here, test plan has everything, which has a configuration element, thread group, listener, test fragment, and many more. Okay, so basically it is a root in hierarchy which includes everything, and one test plan which is being used for the testing the one application it can be made for the, it's like a project in JMeter. Now, what is the next thing, which is the thread group? Now, if you look at this thread group, basically it controls the number of threads. That means there's one application, and on top of that application, you want to simulate the number of traffic, the number of users request, and then accordingly, based on the response, you want to study the response rate. So you want to create a load on the application. So that is controlled by the thread group. In the thread group, you can declare the number of users, number of requests to be made, and the concurrence request, parallel request, sequence request, all this request specification you're going to define in the thread group. Okay, so that is the thread group. Now, configuration element. So configuration element basically is a basically, if you look at the test plan, what kind of configuration detail you want to pass to the test plan. Anything you pass to the configuration element will be also can be used anywhere in the thread group, listener, sampler, controller, timer, and many other places, assertions and stuff like that. So here you can set any default configuration or variables for the later use cases. Again, configuration elements is also multiple type. Okay, configuration element also is a multiple type. For example, CSP dataset config, HTTP cookie manager, login config elements, HTTP request default, again FTP request default. So these are the default configuration and variables which you may use it in your and assertions and anywhere else, so you can set it up, though it is not necessarily to set the default configuration and variable, but yes, it's a good practice. If you set it up, then you don't have to set it up at the multiple places. So this is a good place to set up any configuration and variables for the test plan. You can set it up in the configuration element. Okay, so this is the third element. Again, let me show you this image again. Before that, show you this image. You see in the JMeter, you will find something like this. You have a test plan and defined variables and stuff like that. So here you have a test plan under that configuration element, and configuration element, thread group, listener, and many more. So here I did talk about it. Test plan, which is basically a kind of root element for the having all the components. Thread group, which is basically creating the number of simulates the user number of requests on the application. Configuration element, which is used for the default configuration and variable for the later use cases. This is optional. And controller and sampler. So this is an important one. What is a controllers and what is a sampler? Now again, if I show you controllers and sampler, if you look at this as per the image, controllers and samplers may be a part of thread group or may be a part of the controller or part of the thread group. Now another sampler is a part of the controller. Whereas the controller is a part of the thread group. So now we need to understand what is a sampler and what is a controller. Now let's understand this. So controllers, let's understand that two controllers. So basically here there are two kind of controllers which you can find it. Okay, again here you see controllers and sampler I am discussing. So here two types of controllers you can find it in JMeter. Now logic controllers and samplers. Okay, so this we call it these two are controllers which you call it logic controllers and samplers. Now what is a logic controllers? So logic controllers basically is one of the controllers which will let you customize the logic to decide when to send a request. Again, look at this here. Here in this, you thread group send a request to where? To application. So basically, under the thread group, you define the controller. Under the thread group, you define the controller, and the one controller which I am talking about is logic controller. Logic controller decide when to send a request. Okay, so that conditions will go to the logic controller. Now, some sampler is basically performing a request. Okay, here logic controller will control when to send, and sampler will just perform a request. Will do the request, generating or one or more results. So basically, sampler which can be FTP request, HTTP request, JDBC request, BSF sampler, access log sampler, SMTP sampler, and many more sampler. So basically, yes, here logic controllers decide when to send a request and samplers send a request. Simple to the application. So all this is a part of controller, logic controller and sampler is a part of the thread group. You see that thread group. Okay, so this is the one. Now with that, let's understand the timer. What is a timer? So timer is basically deciding factor for the between the two requests. What should be the pause? What should be the delay in between the two requests? So that is decided by the timer here. An assertion. What is assertion? So assertion is something like a validate a response is as expected or not. So now assertion is a kind of thing you can validate. You can write a hell lot of assertion. Let's say you did the request through the JMeter to the application. Now whether the results you are getting as per your desire or not, whether it's a wrong results, wrong response, or valid response, invalid response. So whether you are getting the response is as expected or not. So that you control through assertion. Now if you look at this assertion, you control through as per the image. Again I'm showing you the same image again and again. See here, assertion you send it to the as who is controlled by the sampler. Why? Because sampler who send the request. So response also will be handled under the assertion, which is a response, will be handled by the sampler itself. So now here you have assertion. Okay, so ultimately, yes, assertion is to validate a response is as expected. Now, what is a listener? So here again, let me show you where is the listener in the diagram. Look at this here. Listener is under the test plan. Okay, listener is under the test plan. So now, what is the job of the listener? Let's understand. Okay, so listener basically listen to response and give you the matrices, aggregate the matrices in form of graph, table, tree, or log. So there is a different kind of listener which you have it, and listener which basically give you the test plan request response and aggregate the matrices. So this is the important terminologies what we used in the JMeter. So here again, some of the important point about the listener. So all listeners save the same data. The only difference is that the way the data is presented. Okay. So basically, yes, all the listener save the same data. The only difference is that the way the data is presented in form of a graph or table or tree or log. So that is this one. And also, listener can use lots of memory, so you have to be mindful about that. Now, if you put it all this component of the JMeter, terminologies of the JMeter. So what should be the execution flow, execution order, and rules? So before that, we discussing into the executions order and rules. Let's discuss about that. Let's sum up this stuff. So finally, yes, this is the test plan. Under the test plan, we have a configuration element, thread group, listener. Under the thread group, you may have a sampler and controller. And controller again, you may have a sampler. And sampler, you may have a timer. And sampler, you may have assertions as well, and listener. So yes, this is the test plan, thread group, configuration element, controller and samplers, logic controllers, samplers, logic controllers, samplers, timer, assertion, listener, and this is the one. Now I'm going to show you some of the executions flow. So when this is the execution order in which they get executed. So first thing, configuration element, then preprocessors. Preprocessors I did not talk about it, and timers, logic controllers and sampler at the same time, post processors, assertion, and listeners. So this is the execution order of JMeter in that. So now I'm going to show you running the test. So basically, this is the flow which I'm going to show you. So first thing, I'm going to set up a JMeter and set up the prerequisite for the JMeter and set up the JMeter. And then second thing, I'm going to run the application, which we need a sample application. And third thing, which we're going to run the base JMeter application run through the GUI, graphical user interface. So you can do through the command line also, but we will try through the JMeter. So now let me get into the demo. So do you have any questions so far? Any question? Any questions, guys? No? Okay, so corp, I'm writing this here, corp JMeter September 2019, and I'm going to rename it to text. Here it is. Now first thing, install. First thing we discuss about what is JMeter. Then we discuss about why JMeter. Then we discuss about the architecture of it. Then we discuss about the terminology of JMeter. And then finally, understanding a prerequisite of JMeter, which is JDK, and then installing JMeter, running JMeter, running app, and create a test plan, thread, sampler, config element, here controller, timer. So always remove this image. Here sampler, timer, and here assertion. Finally, assertion is done, and listener, which is at the plan level. Listener. Okay, this I'll keep it. So this is the stuff which I'm doing right now. So now first thing, what is the prerequisite for it? So of course JDK 8 now and Java home. They should be done. So now best way to understand all this thing, up to date information, always you should hit the just a second, let it go up. Yeah, so here you go to the jmeter.org. Here it is. This is the official website, and here if you see Apache JMeter, here you can see what can I do with it. Now see here, feature include this much. Again, component reference, function reference, properties reference, some doc files, all this thing you have it. JMeter is not a browser. Again, multiple tutorials are being given. Now, if you go left side here, you see download releases, and here right now the one JMeter which we have right now is 5.11, which is supported by JDK 8. So now you install the JDK from the Oracle website and set a Java home. For this demo, I have already installed in my laptop Java home. So echo, you see here Java home is set. Now I'll validate the Java version also, and here Java version, as you can see, 1.8.1. So this is the stuff. Yeah. So this is the Java, the second, guys. So yeah, so finally now I have to install the JMeter. So now let's get started. So here I'm going to download tarball, which is a binary. Here you can see the zip tar. So I'm going to download the zip file. Now same time, typically I installed everything inside a C directory and tools. So here I'm going to create one directory, and here I'm going to name it JMeter1. Okay, so this is the JMeter1. I'm going to name it, and my download is in progress. Okay, guys. So now almost download is completed. Yeah. So finally, this is the JMeter. I'm going to copy inside the JMeter1 directory. Here it is. Now I'm going to extract it. Here it is. I will delete this jar file, zip file, and what I will do, I'll copy the entire directory structure here. So that way you got everything. So now that is what I downloaded and extracted everything. You have it. Now you see that here you have a start and stop commands, which is like a jmeter.bat and jmeter.sh. And here, if you see all the libraries which you have, which is powered by JMeter. Now any plugins which you want to install, here you can install the as well. So now see here, so many plugins are already there. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the command line, and here I am going to directory which is called cd jmeter1. Now the file is bin, so cd bin, and the file which I'm going to execute it jmeter.bat. Enter. This is the graphical user interface, you get it. And here it is. So now this is your JMeter graphical user interface. So now we have a JMeter up and running without any problem, and this is the one which we needed now. So do you have any questions running the JMeter so far? Installing the JMeter, running the JMeter. Do you have any questions? Any questions, guys? Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to run the application. So I need a one test application where on which I can generate a load. So what to do? So I have a test application which is already, I have it, got it. So let's hit the test application, and that is So this is the PPT JMeter demo, and this is the application. So here, this is the application which I'm going to run, and basically what I will do, I'll copy all this thing to the C drive, tools, and here I'm going to make one directly Java application, Java app. Okay, and inside that I'm going to run it. So I'm going to close that remaining window. Here it is. Now I go to this directory, cd, and here I'm going to run this demo.bat. Demo.bat, basically it has only one line of program, which is basically jar running the demo.jar, which will run the applications. So demo.bat and enter. Now my application, the one demo application which I needed for that JMeter to create a load on it, now it is there. Now the application is running, but how can I access it? It's running on 8080 port. So if we go to the here, you can see this application is running. This is a sample application which we have got it for the creating a load. So here you have three pages. One is home, one is catalog. Underneath you have some features here, books, category 1, non-category 1, all this thing. And here login, the default username is user1, password is user1. So you can log in. So these are the features which you have. So you can pass the parameter also and create a load, a login session loads also. So this is the application which I am running right now. So with that, right now running app is done. Finally, I have all the ingredients which is required to create a load, like installing the JMeter is done, running the JMeter is done, running the application done. Now finally I have to create a test plan. And now test plan, which is nothing but this one. So you have to create a thread, sampler, all the stuff like that, which you have to create it. So now let's get started. So here I am going to access the application. So where is my application? I'm just looking for it. Okay, I think by mistake I closed that application. So let me, yes, I think I closed that application. So that's a bad. CD. And JMeter.bat. I'm running on more time that application. So sorry, JMeter. So this application is running. I can see that here, and JMeter is coming up as well. Yeah. So now this is the JMeter. Now everything we have got it up and running. Just we have to create a sample program. So now let's get started. So I'm creating a one test plan. Now what is a test plan? So this is the software which I'm going to create a plan for the Globo Mantics. So here this is the project. Now here you see that this is the test plan. Now save it. This test plan, you just save it. Now where would you like to save it? So of course I would like to save it at JMeter, and there's one directory I'll create it, project. So everything else stored in this one. So this is the JMS file which get created actually. So manually you can create through one GUI and then run through command line also. That is possible. So now Globomantics, which is a test plan. Remember, it's a test plan I created. Now with that, you see the multiple options are there. You have to go a little bit slow on this. So here, if you look at this, run thread groups consecutively one at a time, or tear down the thread group. Functional test mode also you can do that. So these are the things. Now inside that, if you right click, and a lot of options are there, but I'll go and create a thread. Now thread, remember the thread is number of users which you are going to create a load on. So now let's create a thread group. Now thread group, let it be the name of the thread group. And now the number of thread users, how much users you want to be creating, the load of, let's say 100. And ramp up period, like ramp up period means how often you want to ramp up that in terms of second. So here 1. Do you want to run this in the loop? You can say yes, no, whatever it is. How many times you want to run? Let's say 2 times, 3 times, all this stuff. Now here delay threshold created until needed. You can do that. You can schedule that also. Here you can set the schedule. So many options are given. Now with that, I'm going to save this. Okay, so thread group is created. Now after the thread group is created, now you have to go and create a sampler and controller. So first you controller. Remember, controller will define when basically request should be sent. So here, if you click here and you see here, logic controller and samplers. There are two kind of controller. So first one is a logic controller. So here you say if controller, transaction controller, loop controller, while controller, and so many controllers are there which you can use it. So now this will control the, if this one, then do this one, if this one, then do this one. So here you can do the evaluation of the all the the conditions. So right now I don't need it. So here I'll go with it directly. I'll go with the samplers. Samplers will execute something, which something. So now I want to create a load on non-fictions. This is the one. So here, this is the URL. If you look at this, so this is the URL. Out of which, this is the pattern. So where it should go? Pattern, it should go to the config elements. So now let's go to the config element. So create a thread, add. Look at the config element. You have it at the run level. So globematics, add. See here, you config element, you got it. Config element, let's say HTTP request default. Now HTTP request, you can have a, I'll delete this one and I'll show you one more time. Here you see, you can have a many config element here. You can see that LDAP, login, JDBC, HTTP authorization, FTP, DNS counter, so many elements, config elements which you can do that. So here HTTP request. Now HTTP request default. What should be the protocol? Default is HTTP. Now what is the server name? So server name, I'll keep it localhost. Okay. Now what is the port number? So port number, I'll make it 8080. Okay. Now here I'll leave it as it is. Now I can fill the path here also, but right now I don't want to fill it because something should go to the sampler also. So now this is done. Now I am going to this is not needed right now. Remove it. So here I'm going to create a sampler for HTTP request. Now here I have already filled the protocol, this one. So here it should be what? So here you have a method get, post, head, put, options, all these things method you have it. So here I should fill this one path. At this path it should be running. So now save it. So now see here the flow. I got it uncreated. I added thread. I added config element. I added sampler. Then you can add a timer also. You can add a timer. So here you have a sampler timer. Add, and here you can select the timer, constant timer, and here you can say thread delay in milliseconds, 3 seconds or whatever it is. So you added the timer also. Now you can use the assertion also, assertions to make sure that you get the response. So assertions like HTTP request, here assertions you can do that here. So what is the response you should get? So response assertions, you can decide the response code. So now let's say response code is like, let's say main sample body apply to where. So main sample and sub sample, or main sample body or sub sample, or JMeter variable name to use. So basically main sample only you will do that. And what should be the response code? So let's say if it is a 200, then it's good. So now equal to, you can say here response code contains matches equal to, and you can add it also, pattern to test 200. Okay, and then save it. So finally you did all this setup. Finally you have to do the listener. What is a listener? Listener basically is a keeping a record of everything. So remember, listener is always at the test plan level. You see that? You can keep it the listener at the down level also, but it's good to have it at the test plan level. So now go to this here and go add listener. Which listener you have it? So HTTPL, these are the, you can see view results in table, and you can see response time graph, so many view results tree also you can see. So added tree also. I will add more listener, which is a view results in table also, and you can add whatever you want to see that basically. So here graph results also, all this thing you done. So basically, yes, all this thing is done. Finally save it and go to the plan and run it. Now let's check it out. I have run this. Now look at this HTTP request. See here, my system is getting little bit slow. See all this slow. This is the reports. Everything is okay. It's okay, running fine. Everything is okay. Now see graph results. See the load. When you do the load of this one, what happens? And different kind of see data, average, median, deviation, throughput, all this thing. This is in graph, which you can see it here. Now it will keep pinging. So I think I made a loop of 3 times. So it will do that 300. So you see 100 by 3 loop. If you remember, 3 loop I did it. Now here you see 3 loop by 100. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to kill that applications. So I'm going to manually kill that application. So now that page is not accessible at all. Okay, I'll close this. Yeah. Now again I will rerun. And you see here. Okay, I just again I have to stop it. Now I can clear this data, clear the data, so I can see that fresh. Now you see the status. See that? See. So this is the way you can analyze the load by manipulating the stuff, thread group, and all the stuff. Here we have a configuration element, thread group, listener, controller, sampler, timer, pre-post processor, assertions, and all this stuff. And this is the way you can do the load testing. JMeter is one of the wonderful. Again, this was the very crash course actually, and lots of things you have in the JMeter. You have to practice it a lot. But it's very simple tool once you get started, and then important thing is like you have to practice that all stuff and then get started. Any questions so far you have? Any question? Any question? Guys, are you there? Am I audible? Any questions you have? Okay, so now what I'm going to do, this application you can change to the some other application, let's say google.com or something, that will also work. So here or maybe my application also you can put it DevOpsSchool.com or something like that, which will also work. So now I'm going to give you 20 minutes for doing all this stuff. So here all the instructions I have showed you and where to get it and stuff like that. and this is the flow which we need to create a test plan for it. Now installation is very easy. Java installations and all stuff like that is very easy. You might have done it 100 times. So I'm going to share with you this documents. Let me just a second.
Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries. We will reply to them at the earliest. Want to study further? Subscribe to our paid membership to get a deep dive into each and every topic. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to our DevOps School channel and hit the bell icon to learn more. Keep learning.